Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Cleaning and Cocktails in the studio. You know that's the way I love to do it now. I have a special guest, a friend of mine, a peer, a business coach, a man of many titles that I'm going to get into, Angelo Sisco. Thank you for joining me, man.
Grateful to be here, brother. Thank you.
So real quick, guys, I take the comments that you all share with me all the time. And one thing that I've been told is I have to get better at introducing our guests. So I am going to actually use my phone for this because he's got a long list of a career and where you're at, man, as an entrepreneur. So I want to get it right. But Angelo is the CEO and founder of Cisco Advisors.
Yes.
Which you have been coaching business owners for the last year, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep going. It's
Go
not,
ahead,
it's not there. So, but your career and experience started way back when. I remember it too, and it's funny to see the list here, man, because like I've known you for such a while, and I've seen you in some of these positions, but not like this. So this is actually a good layout. So he was a co-founder and owner of CrossFit Harwood Heights, which is a suburb here in the Chicago area. That's a CrossFit gym.
Yep.
Then you moved on to be the owner of O'Hare CrossFit for over 10 years, which we'll get into that one because I love the story of that one because it grew from one gym to many. Then you were the founder of Cisco CrossFit Business Coaching, which makes sense to be the coach of that industry that you know and love.
Sure.
You did that for a few years. And then this one, I'm going to have more story on this, but you were a podcaster, fellow podcaster for a podcast called Alpha Hippie.
Yes, sir.
Which I will share a funny story on that. And then you were a president and fractional integrator. This is interesting for Slice Factory, which you guys know I love pizza.
Yeah.
It's a pizza shop here in the Chicagoland area.
Yes, sir.
Did that for a couple of years. And you guys heard me say fractional integrator, and I'm going to get into that with you later on.
Yeah.
And now you've developed your own program called BOS-UP, and you have now launched Cisco Advisors, which we're right back to what you're the CEO of.
Yeah.
And before I keep going, I want to put it down and just congratulate you a little bit there, buddy.
Thanks,
bro.
brother.
That is,
Appreciate you.
You know, that's a journey to go from one unit, starting one company, to now you launched many, sold, which we'll get into, and then now you're coaching. So congrats to you, man, just
Thank
on
you.
that feat.
No, pleasure. Thank you.
So you're on Cleaning and Cocktails.
I
People
am.
may be like, but this guy's not a cleaning industry. You're not a cleaning industry. You're not a cleaning business owner.
No.
But why'd you say yes to coming on the show?
Well, to hang out with you is always a pleasure and always a good time. And, we got something really exciting that we're working on together. And that I'm excited to learn more about the cleaning industry and share what I have to offer to them.
All right, man. Well, I'm going to give you guys, again, a word-for-word mission statement from Angelo, because I think it's fitting that you come from the gym industry, and this is part of your mission is he helps founders get off the treadmill and build businesses that can run without them. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Treadmill, gym. I know I'm not the only one laughing. After building and selling multiple seven-figure companies, you discover that founders and owners are trapped in a cycle of constant execution that's unsustainable. Your approach combines practical business systems with personal development because the true business freedom requires both.
Yeah.
I want to read word for word for that because I think there's a lot of strong basis there. But before I continue, elaborate on why did you come to that as your mission statement? I mean, it's very fitting, but like what brought you to that?
For sure. So for me, starting a business, the goal was freedom from having a boss, freedom to not be capped on how much money I make, and just my ability to choose what I wanted to do. And I think a lot of people start businesses in search of a more free life. And what winds up happening is they wind up owning a job instead of owning a business, and it winds up just being abusive instead of what they really tried to be. And so I make it my mission to try to free up that space so they can build businesses they love and the businesses that serve them instead of the other way around.
Dude, that's such a, like I get goosebumps because it is a powerful statement because that is like the American dream, right? You hear it, you see it, especially with social media now. It's like, why did you start a business? Well, I wanted to buy my freedom.
Yeah.
Dude. You are not buying your freedom by owning a business.
Totally.
So like what was the aha moment for you when that happened, when you said, man, this is not what I signed up for.
Sure.
This is not what I was thinking of.
Sure. So I started O'Hare CrossFit in 2010. And, it was just like any kind of beginning of a business. I grinded for about 2.5 years before I took a day off and took a little vacation. I still remember that trip. I was like, oh my God, I'm leaving my business for a few days. And then came back, a couple things broke, learned some new things that I needed to build and built those things. And then we were able to develop a team, develop some key people, and it just felt like people were beside me helping the business grow and then also relieving some of the stress I had. And I just realized that everybody should get on this train.
Yeah, let's get on that train, man.
Yeah.
Let's get on the treadmill. That's what you got. All right, so I've known you, again, so people know, like, dude, over 20 years. I mean, I think even over 25 years.
Yeah,
like a long time.
Yeah, high school.
And what I vividly remember is, again, I didn't know if I knew you, but I'd seen you at Bally's Gym, which is a very big chain of gyms here in the Chicago area. Used to be, yeah. Yeah, not anymore. But dude, I would see you, and the funny thing, because I was so close to my fathers, I would always see you with your dad too.
Totally.
Like you guys were always just working out. I'm like, who are these? I could tell you guys were, father, son.
Yeah.
So I know you have that passion already. So it was ironic to see that you launched a business in the space that I figured you loved it and enjoyed it, but like, what was it about the gym industry that like said, hey, I want to actually be in this industry and work in it?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So when I was 20, almost 21, I was in a motorcycle accident. I was hit by a landscaping truck off my motorcycle. I was in the hospital for 2 months and rehab for 5 months. And then following that time, I got really overweight. I got up to about 300 pounds. And in 2000,
you don't look like he's 300 pounds right now.
I promise you I was. And in 2008, I watched the movie 300 with those Spartans. And I was like, man, these guys are in a different kind of shape. They're like athletic. They're not just really big and bulky. What happened to these guys? Found out that they worked out at a gym called Jim Jones. They trained a methodology called CrossFit. I start researching more. I said, man, what's this CrossFit thing? I'm going to try it. January 5th, 2009, I was a resolution. I committed to doing CrossFit, did my first workout that day, lost 100 pounds in about 7 months. And I had another business at the time, and I was just so involved with fitness. It was what I was doing all day. The business I had was a nighttime business that sold pizza outside of clubs and bars in the city. So like that was running itself.
So I bought a lot of those slices.
Yeah, like
sure.
outside. Remember the club Bon V?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we were outside there, and I just got to spend so much time into fitness, and people around me were just like, can you work out with me? Can you show me what you're doing? And I did that for like a month, and I was like, man, can I make this a living? Can I do this? And so I started training people outside a little village hall for 3 months, got Chicago weather kicked in. I rented a racquetball court space for 10 months and turned it into a little training studio, and then built up a clientele from there. And I was like, man, I'm just going to keep running with this. And then I opened my first gym in 2010.
So man, think about that grind.
Yeah.
It's a grind. You're renting racquetball facilities. And then of course the winter comes because you can't work out during the day here in Chicago or outside. So tell me, so as you were talking, it made me think of, so I didn't realize about losing the 100 pounds in 7 months.
Yeah.
So you set forth to do something.
Yeah.
You reached a goal. I don't know if 100 pounds was a goal, but it's a very substantial amount.
Yeah.
So you saw the results, the fruits of your labor, busting your butt.
Yeah.
Is that, how does that play with you now, years later, and the people that you were coaching, because you did it yourself?
Yep.
So like, it's a little different when those that speak about things, but actually never did those things. You accomplished that goal. How do you carry that into now when you started the business?
Oh, sure. What a great question. So I think I just had such a relative story for people that I wasn't the varsity athlete. I didn't always have abs and things like that. And the fact that I had a major accident, like I still have screws and plates in my ankle.
Oh, wow.
It made me just really relative to people. I had a good story that they could really sit on, that someone knew what it was like to be depressed because they were overweight, somebody that had to deal with any kind of feelings about how they looked and stuff like that. And it just created a vibe because I was on the other side of that, and people knew that I could be their Sherpa. Like if we were going up Mount Everest, like I was the Sherpa. I was able to take them on that journey.
Dude, think about that. Again, the mindset that you probably have when, I only had a rehab for a couple of weeks when I got hurt, right?
Yeah.
I had a little minor injury. I never, ever got hurt to that degree. And I was out for like 3 weeks. And I was like, man, what the hell? Like, how do you recover? How do you rehab? So I actually went to do, again, this is such a minimal story compared to yours, but talk to me about that, because that had to have been a big shift in your life, that you've got to recover. You've got to get through this. There's the light at the end of the tunnel, because I really do love the relevancy factor, because that is so true of people like to learn and be coached and taught by somebody who literally has been in their shoes.
Yeah. So, I got in the accident. I was in the hospital for 2 months. They tried a bunch of different surgeries, and then they landed on the skin graft over my foot, and I had to put 10 screws in a plate. And so not only was I overweight, I was not very mobile. I couldn't really move really well. I had a limp, and I still do times when I could tell you when it's going to rain before anybody else. I'm like a meteorologist.
Like a
Yeah,
meteorologist.
I'm the best. I'll let you know days in advance. And so I just kept, learning more to improve myself. And it wound up being such a blessing because a lot of people have issues like that. Maybe
Very
not as
common.
severe as me,
No.
but how to do it. And just ultimately too, what I loved about working out and training so much is when I meet anybody that has a dedicated fitness program, I already know that they have a certain set of virtues that I just think are super important for people to have, right? So if you just look at me, whether or not, however I look, but that I have willpower, that I have work ethic, that I have discipline, that I could deploy delayed gratification. And so I look at it as like not only a training ground for my physique, but a training ground for virtues that I just hope to have.
Wow. Powerful. That's a snippet. We're going to grab that one
Yeah.
right there. All right. See, like you're taking me way off my questions right now. So
All right.
you said the word delayed gratification.
Yeah.
I think that's so I'm going to stick to that word or two words because, dude, in business, right, your early years. So I'll carry on to the question I was going to talk about too, but early years, it's the toughest part, right? Because you're in the grind, you're doing the work that you probably don't want to do. You want to be in the other, right, on the business versus in the business.
For sure.
So it is a sense of delayed gratification. Like it is going to take time to get to what your end goals are. And even at that, you may have more goals. So it's delayed even further.
Yeah.
How do you wrap yourself around delayed gratification? That's a great virtue to talk about.
I think that having a vision for what you are creating and being the champion of that version, especially when it's not feeling that way, is the most important job of an entrepreneur. And I don't want to say it's just optimism, but maybe radical optimism. Like your ability to, okay, I just got kicked in the face, 5 members just quit. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make rent next month. But then you could just close your eyes and think about this place that you know that you're going and just keeping you on that drumbeat. And in the very beginning, you're the only one that believes in it. And then, stuff happens. You get 50 members here, 100 members here. All of a sudden, there's people around. And then you're like, yeah, other people are into it. But in the very beginning, you're carrying that flag by yourself. And that's just the reality.
Dude. And again, so I want to tie it to the cleaning industry, right?
Sure.
Where it's like, again, a small business is a small business.
Yeah.
You use the word member.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you're using members like your members of your
customer,
right?
Yeah.
So you could say for us in the cleaning industry, that's clients, but more so team members, because it's even more difficult, in my opinion, for a cleaning company to grow without the right team members. Because you're going to you have to not only clean, but you have to manage the business, right? And go hire and build a team.
Yep.
So like that's so critical in the fact that you said, like you have the vision at the end of the day, that drumbeat. I think that'd be cool. Hey, Sus, we got to work on a theme of a drumbeat. But like, again, the beat goes.
Yeah.
And, again, there's going to be a time that maybe the drum falls.
Yeah.
Something happens, right? But like, just get back on the beat again.
That's it.
Because, dude, it does happen. I've met moments in the early years that half the team quit, right? Or the team doesn't show up. You got to go back and clean. So I'm off the drum beat. I got to go clean.
Yeah.
That's not supposed to be the beat that I'm drumming to, but it's fascinating to hear that because, again, there's the relevancy that we have where in the gym, you're growing your membership base, but then your team grows.
Yep.
So talk to me about the early years when you realized I have the right team around me so I can actually grow this business now.
Sure. This is so interesting that you're asking, you brought this up. So I had this conversation with a founder that I'm working with, and I believe that every founder, every business owner, there's a rite of passage when it comes to your team. You're going to start your business and you're going to get it off the ground and it's going to get moving. And then there's going to come a point in time where you have to start making it legit, like processes, systems, and everything like that. And there's going to be 1 or 2 people that started with you in the beginning. And then once you have to start making it more organized and things like that, they're going to rebel. And I call it the founder's rite of passage because it's going to break your heart to fire the people that you think got you there.
Yeah.
But you are going to have to move on from them. I did it. I still remember their names. Not going to say it, but I still remember their names. And I remember letting this go on for 6 to 8 months because I couldn't bear it. Couldn't bear it. Yeah, I thought I just was too loyal. I was like, they were going to turn around. And so I think everybody's going to go through that. I call it the rite of passage. It's part of your journey as a founder to do that. And then also too, just understanding who you are and what you are really good at. that. Me and you, we love sales, right? We'll sell it and we don't even know if we could fulfill it. You know what I mean? Well, just for the sake of doing that, right? And then so for me, I knew that I needed really good steady Eddie operators. I needed people that didn't want a lot of change, just people that were going to get in there and do, cross the T's, dot the I's. They're happy to follow the processes that we made. They're happy to improve them a little bit, but they're not going to do life-changing stuff for the business. That's what I really wanted to do because I understood that that's where I wanted to put my time. And so rite of passage, then you have knowing who you are and what really where you need help, where it would be great for people to get off you. And then it's like a little bit over time. Like if we were a ship and we had a little too much weight, we wouldn't throw everything overboard to pick up speed right away, but one thing at a time. So like for me, I didn't love coaching the evening classes. I didn't like the evening fulfillment. I was an early bird guy and all that. So the first thing was getting the evenings off my back. Then it was, okay, I'm going to get the finance off my back because I just want to look at reports. I don't want to, sorry, Excel. Yeah. I'm not your guy. Not your guy. Can't get a formula out of me if you try.
I don't even know how to do a pivot. No,
right, okay? And so it's just about that, right? Knowing who you are and then building the business enough that you could afford to move that thing over. And then when that time comes, that opportunity comes for you to hire that person, you double down on what you're really good at. And you put more time into that because that's what's really the game is to get as much as your focus time in your zone of excellence, your zone of genius, where you really move the business forward. And so you're on a journey when you're first starting, maybe you got 10% of your time there. And then every year, 6 months, 8 months, whatever, you're moving to have more time in that area.
Man, powerful. Dude,
Thank
so
you.
I love the ship analogy too, because so now I want to move on to you are finding the right team. You're taking some of this stuff off your plate. The ship is getting lighter, right?
Yep.
You started to, you had the vision of adding more ships, right?
Yep.
I'm going to say adding more ships is you creating a conglomerate of different CrossFit gyms.
Yes.
Talk to me about that shift. Because again, bringing it back to the cleaning industry is a lot of times if you run a successful branch and I'm good here in Chicago and I'm building the business, I have aspirations of, hey, I want to be in Detroit. I want to be in St. Louis. You want to grow and expand.
Yep.
Same, that's what you did,
yep.
right? Just from a gym unit perspective.
For sure.
How was that process when you did that?
Yeah. So for me at first was I wanted to get my first gym, my first location running 80% without me. And then I knew that I could go turn my head. And that it wasn't going to break.
Because that 20% wasn't going to break you.
That's it. Right? Okay. Wasn't a big deal, right? And so I knew that 20% of the time going in there for meetings, making sure the KPIs are on track, maybe a little troubleshooting, and then I could go do other things. And that was a process just to get there, right? I would build something up, and then I would take a vacation for a week and see if it broke. Intentionally, because I needed to know how strong was this, how much can this keep up without me? And so I know a lot of times when business owners are like, oh, take a vacation, what all this stuff. This is how you test and see if this is really a business and what you need to get back and do. And so it was a series of about a year before I got it to where I needed it to be. Right. And you always leave a little earlier than you think. And, always things little pop up. But leaving, finding out what's broken, not being mad that it's broken, being grateful that you're knowing that this is what
you're aware.
This needs to get fixed. Oh, man, my sales process isn't as documented as I thought it was. Right. And you just fix that and then you test it and then you move on. And then after that, you're like, okay, I could move for a period of time and go focus on these other things, because that's what was the thing is I knew that I had the time to start building the culture in the other place, because I think the founder, what we ultimately do is we set the vibe.
Yeah.
Right. And when you're going off to a new land, a new frontier, that the vibe that you want to have and that no one else could really set that for you. And once you get that other people in place, you can move on to the other one, same song and dance, but you need to make sure that that's there.
Bro, I love the words you're using right now.
Thank you.
Ships, frontier, journey. I mean, dude, it's like you're navigating.
Yeah.
Right? You're really navigating this crazy world of business ownership.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about navigating, learning, and then going back. Like if you could go back and you were given the task to help another business owner scale their business, what things did you learn from what you encountered that you would kind of fast track them to right now?
It took me, all right, so we started in 2010. 2011, 2012, and 2013, I had exponential 83%, 275%, like sick growth, like growth that just isn't normal. Okay. But of course, me not understanding that in that time of my career, I thought that was how it's going to be forever.
Let's go.
And I thought that I was on the greatest heater of my life and I was going to retire at 28. Like I thought it was all over for me. Okay. And around 2014, we grew, what I considered marginally, which was around 20%. And I remember this vividly, just my energy and my attitude being ungrateful, very victim-like, blaming my employees for not doing what they needed to do, blaming my customers for not referring as much, or people are leaving. And I turned into a complete victim. And I was like, I wish I could just figure out what this problem was. And someone handed me Emotional Intelligence 2.0, and which I think is the gateway book to start learning about self-awareness, mindfulness, and really looking at yourself. And if there's anything that I wish I could have done better, I wish I would have started that in the beginning. And what I would believe was possible, my ability to handle my emotions, my ability to not take things personal. Those first 4 years, I thought everything was about me.
Yeah. And
I wish that I knew that earlier.
Dude. That's a good one, man. That's a good one. Because look at, you just gave people a call to action on this book, which again, maybe we'll share that book as well. Because I think that is the learning stuff, right? Like you are now aware of that. You're not mad.
Yeah.
You're just like, because you can't prevent those things.
Yeah.
But now you can learn from those things, right?
Yeah. I have a saying now, it's don't wish for no problems, wish for new problems. Right? Because if you're repeating the same problems, you didn't figure anything out.
That's a problem.
Right. That's the problem. Then you're
new
stuck.
Problems is like,
I just want new ones.
Okay. I like that one. All right. So now, ironically being on a podcast, let's talk about, because again, the journey that you had, there's some similarities, and I love it because, especially in the era that we're in right now with social media, podcasting is such a big deal, right? You did the thing, started a company.
Yeah.
Then you worked the thing, right? You started in the business, you're building. At that point, when you started this podcast, it's called Alpha Hippie. I want you to kind of give a background on that too. But
totally.
What was that just fulfilling for you to say, hey, I've reached the point where I can not only share, but like ask the right questions, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what a podcast is about, your storytelling and asking the right questions. But let's talk to me about Alpha Hippie, because that was in 18, right?
Alpha Hippie was 2017, 18, 19, like around there.
Like that was, podcasting was fairly new.
Still fairly
new, right? So talk to me about Alpha Hippie. What does it stand for? What was the purpose?
So 2014, I'm in this huge victim mindset, right? I'm just self-destructing is the best way to say it, not handling my anger right, just anything, just not in a good place. And I read that book, Emotional Intelligence 2.0, and then I signed up for this premier fitness mastermind that was like, put it on a credit card and hope for the best. Okay. Like that's really what happened. Okay. And I just totally committed to it. And I started meeting other entrepreneurs and founders that just had different mindsets about business. I don't know about you if you could really relate to this, but for me, this is how I thought. I grew up in a world where the men and women that were successful in business were dicks. Yeah. Just takers, just savages, like in a very non-kind way, right? And just had a bunch of casualties and things behind them. And then I went out there to this other world and started meeting these people that were running humongous companies, not even just gyms, but like big beverage companies and nutrition companies. And they were kind. And I was like, are you guys real? Is this for real? And so I started going to this mastermind every quarter, meeting with these other people. And I came back from a special retreat that I did, and I started explaining to somebody from like our neighborhood what I was doing, like meditating and stuff like that. And they laughed at me, they laughed at me. And, and I said, you don't know shit about this because you're not an alpha hippie. And I was like, man, what a cool word, right?
Rolled right off.
Yeah. And I said, that's how I want to show up. I want to still get up and take care of business and kick ass, but I want to do it from a place where my heart is still full. And so that was the beginning of Alpha Hippie. And I'm so funny. I was like, man, does anybody make a shirt that says Alpha Hippie? So I go on Google. Nobody makes a shirt. I draw a logo. I design 100 shirts. And I just start passing them out to people at these different retreats and masterminds that I was going to. And people were like liking the vibe. And then I was like, man, I want to connect with these people, but I also want to stay on track with this growth for me, because I'm not able to talk to these people on a day-to-day basis. And the people around me, I love the people that we've grown up with. I cherish them. It's just a different mindset. They're worried about different things. And so the podcast was really selfishly a tool to keep me in the game, in the right mindset that I needed to be. And that's why I connected with you. It was very early on in your journey 7 years ago. And but I knew that you were just different. And we wanted different things and try to accomplish more, but also do it from a very genuine place. And so that's what started the podcast.
I got to tell you, and when you invited me to the podcast, I think it was one of the first episodes, or not maybe first episodes, but you were just starting off. And I want to say this is the first time I was ever speaking into a microphone as I speak now. And you guys, I shit you not. I'm like, all right, well, what questions is he going to ask me? You know, I didn't really get prepared for this. Like, is it an interview? Is there a camera? No clue what's going on now. Totally. This is what I do. But dude, it was awesome, because as I shared that literally began my journey on just, man, I just said all that. Like, that's my life. I was like, oh shit. I was like, I'm going to share more. So I literally used that moment to catapult. Like, I tell you, I don't know if I ever told you that, but those years to come, then I think 3 or 4 months later, I was on another show over here, and it just happened, right? Like, but to your point is, sometimes you're not love the people around you, but you have to step out sometimes. And that was a cool place to step back in. Around us, right?
Totally.
So, tell me about, is it still around?
No, I haven't done it. I haven't done it.
How many episodes did you do though?
200.
But that's a lot.
I ripped
but
it
it's
through.
living out there.
Yeah,
it's still there.
Yeah, I did it so much. It was, like I said, it was just amazing to have these conversations. And for someone like me, if we go to a party, I'm the kind of guy that's, who can I get in the corner and have an hour-long conversation with? I don't want to talk to everybody. I really enjoy deep conversation.
That one-on-one.
Yeah.
Walk out.
Let's go deep in the waters and let's figure out who we are. And so this was just a place I could go and do it.
Dude, awesome, man. All right. So now, again, I'm going through your career and your journey. So now talk to me about kind of where we're getting to today is, you have the businesses, you have the podcasts, you're working on yourself, I'd assume, this whole time, right?
Totally.
When was the moment you exited the business, but then said, I want to exit, but I still love this business side of things, and you said, hey, I'm going to actually go into business coaching? Because is that what then evolved?
I'll break it down for you. So opened up O'Hare CrossFit, opened up CrossFit Harwood Heights, launched a nutrition coaching company, an online programming company, all within a 6-year window, and started getting on other business or CrossFit gyms and gym podcasts. And so I got some notoriety, and one day somebody emailed me, could you help me figure this stuff out with my business? And the thing that I had going for me in my industry is I've owned businesses since I was 17 years old. I understood business, where a lot of people get in business because they have a passion for the thing, like gym owners, they have a passion for working out. But when it comes to the acumen of all business, they didn't really understand it. So 2016, I started coaching CrossFit gyms. I developed a coaching team. We were worldwide. It was really great. And in 2019, I was about to have my first child. My son, Santiago, was born in 2019. And I just had this revelation, this feeling come over me. I still remember the moment and the day that I had this feeling that I just wasn't in love with the fitness industry anymore. I didn't find God in it. That's the best way to say it. It just didn't light me up anymore. And I knew that me staying in it just to make money wouldn't be serving me my greater good. And I went home and told my wife this, my pregnant wife this, and
like, wait a minute,
she's like, okay,
not the right time.
but she understood, like she understood. And after a decade long, it was just time for me to evolve. And so Rite in 2019, I started preparing to sell my businesses, and it just worked out. The timing couldn't have been any better. Right before lockdown of COVID, I sold everything. And right when I was signing all these papers, I looked at my wife and I said, listen, my son was born now, maybe 5 or 6 months. I looked at my wife and said, listen, I'm going to pivot and continue coaching other businesses. But right now we could live anywhere we wanted to live. Where would you like to go? And we packed up and we lived by the beach in California for a couple of years. So It was a wonderful experience. And I'm so grateful that decade long of work gave me the freedom to go and do that.
Yeah. Dude, talk about gratifying.
Yeah.
Right? But all it really did was set you up for the next stage.
Totally.
Right?
Absolutely.
So now let's talk about that stage. BOS-UP.
Yep.
Right? You the concept of BOS-UP. Share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So BOS-UP is a coaching program framework that is powered by a software called 90.io. 90.io is a business operating system software that you could run major facets of your business, and everything is cataloged and data and stored in there. And what we do at BOS-UP is we implement a business operating system framework with these 9 core competencies, where we help people get their vision, their customer, their meetings, their data, their processes, their goals, their enterprise value, where we get everything out in the company, out in the open, and create a system a framework for people to run their company. Also a system for people to, when you're hiring new people, someone could come into your company and they could understand what's going on and what's their expectations and how they're getting, what makes a good job, makes them good at their job, what makes them a core value fit. And also, most importantly, for a founder to get off the treadmill.
Yeah. I mean, you guys see the way it just rolls off his tongue? I mean, come on now. Dude, you could tell that this is what you live and breathe. Man.
Yeah.
You really could. So I wanted to give you kudos on that, because a lot of times people are working or doing things for the money, doing it because they have to, right?
Yep.
You don't always meet people that get to do it because they love it and live it and breathe it.
Yep.
And that's what I feel when I'm talking to you. I wanted to ask you too, we were talking about the books behind this, is how important do you think it is to be a student of the game and always be learning? I got to believe the students of you that you have, the business owners, is there a certain mindset you like to work with where there's those that you won't because they don't embrace the learning?
Yeah. Oh, this is my best analogy for this. I'd rather pull them back than whip them. Okay. I'd rather have someone that's a little bit overzealous, a little too excited, asks me too many questions, jumps forward and does stuff without me, than someone I go, come on, buddy, we got to get up and we got to go.
Yeah.
Like that to me is, I'm sorry, I'm not the coach for that person. But you give me a little aggro, a little aggressive, a little too much, I'm out there, a lot of energy, I am your guy.
You could pull, okay.
Because I know that there is something there. If we just focus you and you get the right direction, you're going to be a champion because you already are running. Yeah. Right?
That's a great analogy.
Yeah. As I said, I'd rather pull them back than whip them. That's my coaching.
Jesus, we got a lot of snippets here, man. This is good stuff, dude.
Yeah.
All right. So you touched on it for a second, and I always try to make sure I kind of bring this into the conversation, Angelo. Yeah. You said you took a couple of years off, not a couple of years off, but you moved for a couple of years to the beach because you asked your wife, hey, where would you want to be? Yeah. So how important is that factor, right?
Sure.
Like being a business owner, not everybody has their spouse as a part of the business, or mom or dad or whatever. In your case, you asked that question. Look what she said. So how important is it to have family around you? Because you're a family man as well with your own
married, family. 2 kids. I don't think anything focuses someone better than having family. I just don't. People ask me, they're like, oh, well, if you didn't have kids, you'd be able to work more, because tonight I got to go to jiu-jitsu, right? I'd be able to work more. I said, yeah, but I wouldn't have as much focus. I wouldn't have as much inspiration. And honestly, for someone like me, I wouldn't have something that keeps me in line, buddy. Yeah. Straight up, true. I was a Thursday to Saturday night, maybe Wednesday if you got me to go out. Like, you know what I mean? And this is just the reality. I wouldn't be able to say no. And I think that family grounds me in a way that I could have the discipline and the courage to say no to things that just aren't really a part of my bigger picture goals.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So this is what I don't always end with, but you liked it as soon as I told you.
I love it.
Let's end with some good recommendations for books, podcasts, events, anything that business owners, especially us in our industry, like what should they jot down and write quickly for themselves?
Sure. Okay. So a podcast that I really enjoy is called Founders. And it's a guy who reads biographies and autobiographies of founders and just tells you the stories about the founders. And if you're just looking for an inspirational journey, if you're looking to understand how someone did it and what they had to go through, it is one of my favorite podcasts to listen to. And for books, I'm not gonna give some just practical business books. I'm gonna throw it over a little curveball here. There's a book called Wherever You Go, There You Are. And it's a book about mindfulness. And I think that mindfulness is a practice, not just when you're sitting on a cross-legged position and you're meditating. It's an ongoing thing. And this book demystifies what I think people misunderstand about mindfulness and how to bring that into your life, into your heart. Because I think that you're moving on this journey, the lighter you could keep your load, the better you are.
Wow. Man, see, you could tell that he's done this before because he ends on a perfect moment and just. So I'm going to not quite end yet, because instead of just saying a normal event, maybe just throw a little bit of a hint of some of the stuff that we're working on here.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm very excited for what we're working on, and to the viewers out there, is we're working on a program to bring structure, discipline, and consistency to your organization so that you could focus, align, and thrive, and really get that freedom that I know that you started your business for. And so there'll be more to come.
Drop the mic. And on that note, Cleaning Cocktails, thank you guys for tuning in, joining us. Angelo, thank you for being here, man.
Pleasure,
and spending
brother.
time with me. There's another one. We wrap. I'll see you guys on the other side.